Hello, my garden friends. This is Jersey Shore Lisa from MyNJGarden.com, and I am showing you the front yard as it's starting to really bloom now that we're getting well into spring at the end of April 2022. Down here, it's so pretty. This is an ornamental wormwood, and it's perennial. I planted it last year. I didn't know that it would come back, but it has, and it's such a delightful, different color kind of a foliage. The Virginia bluebells are still blooming like crazy, and now the beach plums are getting started. Now there are 3 beach plums in the yard, and they did flower and fruit a lot last year. But this year it looks like there's going to be a lot fewer flowers. Here's the one that's really starting to open up right now, and you can see that there aren't really that many of them, and that tends to be typical with beach plums. Some years they fruit like crazy, and then some years they kind of take a little bit of a break. That bugleweed down below as a ground cover is really blooming beautifully, and it gives such a bright splash of purple. The Asian pears are finishing up now, and I wanted to show you this is a Serviceberry. Now Serviceberries can get to be 15 to 20 foot tall multi-stemmed shrubs. You can prune them to be more of a small tree, but they are native to New Jersey. They do fruit, and the fruit looks like blueberries but has a little bit of an almond flavor. They're really delicious and unique kind of berries, but they are also well loved by wildlife. So the rabbits over the last few years kind of browse this shrub, and rather than being just a single tree, it sent up all these suckers all around it. I did dig some out and pot them up last year. This is the first year that it's actually blooming. This should be a 15-foot tall tree, but the bunnies kept it short. Now we have some cats that hang around the yard, and though unfortunately they do have an impact on the local wildlife, they are keeping the bunnies away from the Serviceberry, so it did have a chance to flower, and the flowers smell so wonderful. They really smell just like Fruit Loops, actually. So they are an interesting specimen to have in the garden. The peony are starting to come up, and the tulips are blooming. This is valerian, and that will get much taller before it blooms. The Gumi Berries are blooming now, and you can see these little trumpet-shaped flowers. There are quite a few pollinators who've been visiting the Gumi Berries. This is a jujube, and the pollinator for the jujube is right over here. I am not worried about it, even though it looks like it might be dead. It hasn't leafed out yet. You can see up close that it is getting started. I wonder if it'll focus there. It's a late one. The leaves come out late, the flowers come out late, which is nice because they do bloom after many of the other fruit trees in the yard. They don't tend to be disturbed by the same pest cycle that many of the fruit trees suffer from. This is some bronze fennel, and that is just coming back so lush and beautifully. There are lupines that have self-seeded in this area, and the cilantro is coming back as well, also self-seeded in this area. This is the Honeycrisp apple tree, and that is in the same bed as the black aronia berry, which is leafed out very large in the back, and then this red-leafed sand cherry, and the flowers are just finishing up on this beauty. This is the apple that pollinates most other apples. It blooms fairly early for an apple tree. It is a golden delicious, and these blooms last a really long time. They open, and they stay open throughout most of the season so that they can pollinate early, mid, and late blooming variety apples. So that's nice to have if you need a decent pollinator. This is the elderberry, and it's leafing out really nicely. I did thin it out quite a bit this year, so it looks kind of sparse, but it's definitely going to fill in. This elderberry is just super prolific and happy in this area, so I'm not even a little concerned. This is a clove currant. This is the first year that it's coming back. I just planted it last year, and I'm happy that it made it. As a matter of fact, I see some flower buds on there, so we may get currants the first year after planting. That's pretty amazing. The rhubarb has come back, and the rhubarb is about to bloom. Now, if I was really interested in making sure that I was going to get a lot of stems to harvest off of this rhubarb, I would cut down those flower stalks. But because rhubarb is not a real favorite of my family, I'm just going to leave them there because pollinators really love it when it flowers. There are tons of tiny little parasitic wasps and things like that that hover around those flowers. They really enjoy them. And this is the Pawpaw, one of 3, and we had it fruit for the first time last year. I got to harvest and taste Pawpaw for the first time on National Pawpaw Day last year, and I'll link to that video. But here we are, it's flowering again, and there are so many of them. The Pawpaw flowers are really interesting because they are not pollinated by bees. They're pollinated by flies and beetles and things. So they don't smell delicious. They're actually intended to attract flies and beetles. So they kind of smell a little rancid, but they are planted fairly close together because though they are pollinated by those kinds of insects, they're not really successful pollinators. They're not super fuzzy like bees are, things like that. So I do have the 3 different trees planted fairly close to one another so that we get some successful pollination. This one also has quite a few flowers on it. This one in the middle, they were all planted at the same time, moved from my other property, but this one did get run over, and I thought it was killed that first season that we moved here, but luckily by the second season it had recovered a little bit. But you could see it definitely is behind the other 2 trees, but it is flowering this year. I expect some pawpaws on all 3 trees, hopefully. And here that's a hellebore, and that was really the first thing up and flowering in the garden. And then these are my blueberry bushes. Now the blueberries are being a little weird this year. This one is super happy. There are flowers all over it, and that's typical for that bush. I should really take some cuttings of that and clone it because it just always performs so well. But this one is just a little sparse. It's kind of late to leaf out. There are some flowers on it, but this usually has far more buds than it does this year. This one is leafing out really well, but there are no flowers on it that I see at all. And then these 3 have stayed fairly small and have just a few flowers on each. So it may be something, as well as this lingonberry has been struggling the last couple of years and it's dying back. So there may be something going on in the soil in this area, and I might be taking a soil test to try and determine what's going on with the lingonberry. It may be something where both of these kinds of plants, the blueberries and the lingonberries, really like acidic soil, and it might be a little too alkaline in this area, so I might need to treat that. Other than that, there's a lot going on in the garden in the spring. I just mowed for the first time. I mowed high because I don't intend to apply any synthetic fertilizers or anything to my lawn, so I just want to kind of keep it high, and so that those blades of grass will shade the soil and shade out the weeds and continue to photosynthesize and push that carbon down into the soil and feed those microbes. I do intend to apply some intend to apply some humic acid if I can, at least to the front yard, maybe the backyard too. But that's the extent of the fertilizer that I'll be using this season. And I hope everyone is having a wonderful spring so far. Please share your garden videos with me. I would love to follow if you have a garden channel. So comment for me and put your channel down in the comments, because I'll come and follow you. Please subscribe to my channel and like the video and share it with your friends. Join me for all my garden updates. Okay, thanks for watching. Have a great day.